Ask a question. Is there anybody here that has never been to one of our workshops? Okay. Out of those people, is there anybody that has not at least read one of the books or taken the Cathar course or something? That's not too bad. Okay. I asked this question because we don't do what we call closed groups. We don't discriminate against people that have X amount of knowledge compared to Y amount of knowledge. It makes more work for me because I have to come into a situation and try to literally harmonize the group consciousness field, where the people that don't know any of the information, don't know the reference points that I would use, and the people that do know it and heard it over and over again could get bored if I don't do it right. So I asked the question, first of all, to get an idea of where I need to go and how carefully I need to backtrack to explain things, because I don't want to lose anyone. The information that we present, we, meaning those of Azurite Temple and those that I will talk about in a few minutes, we do our best to bring you information that is, some people say, it's out there, but it's also extremely practical. It's very usable. It's important to me as a speaker, as a person who cares about you and about you being able to use something I have to give, that I take the time to try to get whatever questions you might have. Now, the questions are fun because there's usually not a lot of time, especially with big groups, for question and answers, for, individual question and answers. So I will try as I go along to create a sequence of information that will help you to at least get 50% of it. And the other 50 you'll still get, it just might not assimilate yet. It'll take you maybe 2 days or a week or a month. When we give workshops, they are for a purpose. They are for personal purposes of spiritual growth, for the advancement of consciousness, not just consciousness studies. You can study it all you want, but learning how to use it is what makes studying it worthwhile. So we will give you information that will assist you on a personal level, but we also do that within the greater context, because you don't exist as an island unto yourself that doesn't have any relationship to anything else in the universe. Every one of us are a part of a larger universal drama, a larger universal reality field. Because of that, we will give information in a way that first helps you to understand certain concepts in relation to yourself, and then how that applies and how those concepts apply to the greater picture of what's happening on this planet right now. This planet does not exist alone in space and time. It exists as part of a galaxy, that's part of a universe, that's part of even larger structures. So one of the things that our teachings are built upon is called the Law of One, which is an interpretation of science and spirit that acknowledges the interconnection between all life fields, from the personal level to the planetary, to the galactic, to the universal, to the cosmic, and to source. So you will have information that can be applied to every one of these levels of development. Most people, when they start spiritual development, begin where they are, which is, I am me. That's the place to begin. You can't begin someplace else because your consciousness is stationed right here with you in your body right now. When you start with I am me and start to learn about the parts of your consciousness that you have that you may have forgotten now that you're in a body, you begin a process of expansion of awareness. That expansion of awareness assists not only your mind to expand, but it changes your body as well, because your consciousness is anchored or rooted into this three-dimensional reality through your DNA. The chemical DNA and something behind the chemical DNA that's called the substrand DNA matrix. So your body is as spiritual as your mind and your spirit are. But in our society, we've lost touch with the ancient knowledge that taught us this. Once upon a time, everyone knew this as common knowledge. The science and the spirit went hand in hand. Right now, because of many events in history, some of you know those events because we've had workshops that dealt extensively with what's called the hidden and forbidden history of this planet and of our race and those kind of things. In the ancient of days, the ancient races had all of this information. They had an understanding of their history, how they got here, how the planet got here. In our history line, we have many thousands of years ago lost the information and the memory. There were things, conditions, that created that situation. There are conditions that will operate as permanent until we do something to change them. When we work with the techniques, I like to call them techniques because they're things you do with yourself and with your mind, they are called bioregenesis techniques. Bio refers to the biology and the biological template. Regenesis refers to recreating it, bringing it back to what it originally was. So our memory comes back, and so our consciousness, our spiritual consciousness, which is stationed in higher dimensional fields, begins to have the ability again to anchor itself into our bodies here. This is a process of awakening that is a journey like you would not believe. For those of you who haven't started the journey on a conscious level yet, realize that there are levels of your awareness that are already fully conscious of the fact that you're evolving. You will learn more and more as you grow to become a person who does conscious evolution, which means the part of you that's here also starts to understand the process you're involved with. Now, this workshop over this weekend is going to be a challenge for a couple of reasons. One is because it is a mixed group, where this is the highest level of information that's been provided so far. It is the master's course of the masters. So for the people who have been a part of this work for a while now and have come to numerous workshops, they're going to get a lot more out of it than the people who have no exposure to this work. But you can still get a lot out of it because the techniques that will be given and practiced in this workshop you can use even if you didn't know anything about them. Teaching you about them helps your mind to understand why you would want to do them, and it helps you develop an understanding where you can trust doing them, because it isn't wise to go out and just do techniques of energy that do stuff in your body that you don't know what it is. So we explain what it is. But this is going to be very challenging for me to try to get this level of information across to you. For one reason is because I was just informed about it. The level of information that I'm talking about is on what is called a security clearance. All right, in the interdimensional spectrum, which for the people who are new is part of the reality field we are dealing with. It's a multidimensional system, 15-dimensional time matrix. We're dealing with 15 dimensions, 15 levels of consciousness, and information and identity stationed at each of those levels. The information that this workshop is based on was on D14 security clearance. It was a security clearance that even people that on this planet that walk around and say they're ascended masters and those kind of things, they can't access this. It's a collective decision from a much higher place as to whether that type of knowledge will be added to a reality system or not. Because knowledge can be extremely helpful in healing and in growth, but if it's applied with a lack of ethics or a lack of understanding, it can also be a harmful thing. So there's been many thousands of years on this planet that certain levels of knowledge were not permitted because the consciousness of the beings that live here had de-evolved to the degree that they didn't remember why there were certain laws of how you use power when you have it. So that power and the memory of how to use it was taken away. It wasn't taken away by what we call guardian groups or angelic races. It was taken away by groups that we call fallen angelic races. Now, for the new people, it's interesting when I talk about things like this, to use my reference points, whether I will lose a person or not depends upon which side of a polarity issue the person is on. Right now, people that come to workshops like this have either some interest in spiritual development or they have some interest in things like UFOs and sightings and paranormal activity. All right. Now, people that work with this program start to realize they're all of the same thing. So if you're a person who's been interested in, say, the UFO movement and following that kind of thing, and you hear me talk about fallen angelics, I can just imagine that your astral body will roll its eyes and say, oh, here we go, another light, light, love, and fluffy-headed person. It's not that kind of information. So I wanted to point this out. So if I use terms ETs, UFOs, that they're not my favorite terms to use because they're misleading. But if I use terms like angels and angelics, that does not mean I am a person that's presenting anything you've ever heard before in many thousands of years on what angels and angelics are, or fallen angelics. So the people that are new, I would ask you to suspend judgment on the terminology that's used for a while and try to get more interested in the concepts that are being moved around. And later, if you're interested in exploring it, you'll find out why certain words are used to describe certain things. ETs and angelics can be considered the same thing, but ET is a misleading concept because it makes you think of other beings that are in physical systems that use mechanical spaceships to get here. And that completely does not touch upon the reality of beings who are not made out of the matter density level like we are, and the fact that they have the ability to do intertime travel and interspace travel without the use of vehicles. So we are talking about ET issues, we are talking about angelic issues, but more than anything, we're talking about spirituality and manifestation, and what it means to be in a manifest world. The information that we have had, now this information started to be given for public release in 1998, and it was ready for publication in May of 1999. That is when we did a simultaneous publication of two books called Voyagers, The Sleeping Abductees, which was Voyagers 1, and Voyagers 2, The Secrets of Amente. The Secrets of Amente book started to explain some of the lost history of this race. It started to explain about the realities of interdimensional mechanics. And it started to explain about something called the hulls of Amente stargates. The word Amente is an ancient word that goes back to another place that's not on this planet. The hulls of Amente are a series of stargates that exist in this planet, and they have for many millions of years. The stargates of this planet are a hidden reality. Our scientists, because they do not have interdimensional transparticle science available to them right now, do not realize that stargates exist. But many of them doing quantum mechanics theorize that is definitely possible, but they don't have the framework to justify in mathematical formula how exactly something like that might occur. And therefore, if science investigates the concept of stargates, they are doing so blind. They are doing so without an understanding of the templates, which are the blueprints for such things, how they might work. Fortunately, there are beings in this huge, massive universe of ours that never lost touch with the information. There is a way that things work. There is a format, and there is a structure and a blueprint for how reality systems are built, for how stargates work in planetary systems, for how consciousness and the beings on a planet have a relationship to the stargates. For many thousands of years, the information on the halls of Amente stargates was common knowledge among human races, ancient human races, the memory of who has been intentionally buried. The relics or evidence, physical evidence, has been taken on purpose by other beings that have visited here. We have much to learn about ourselves, and that learning can begin if we start to learn a little bit about our planet. Because when it comes down to it, anybody that's taken the Kathara Biospiritual Healing System Level 1 course and the what was on the Kauai workshop will understand what I mean when I say the body and the planet are built in the same way. They have a different outside form, but their core template is structured exactly the same way. The galactic template is structured the exact same way. The template I'm talking about it can be called several different things. It can be called the divine blueprint. It is called the Kathara grid, which means the light sound one grid or unity grid of light waves and sound waves or scalar waves that form a blueprint, a tangible blueprint of energy upon which particles and antiparticles accrete or pull in to fill out a form, a waveform, into three-dimensional flesh or three-dimensional matter if you're a planet. The information that we've received the beginning of today, and it was information that they told me. The beings that I work with are called the Guardian Alliance. That's just kind of like an easy nickname. There'll be information distributed or available tomorrow that's the introduction for that large manual you see up there, this one. In this, there's a lot of explanation already as far as who I am, who the Guardian Alliance is, what we're involved with, all of that. People that aren't planning to purchase this, I do suggest it just because there's a huge amount of information in here that just I can't even qualify it compared to anything else. It's personal, but it's also massive. But in this particular manual, the first section is dedicated to explaining a bit about what the Azurite temple is, why it was created. There's information on something called the Cloister Doratura plates, which are holographic discs that hold ancient history records. And every few generations or so, there are 3 people chosen because they incarnate to serve that role, and they come in conscious sometimes. They come in conscious as speakers. They're approached in early childhood, usually. I was. And they are taken to places that on this planet they tell you don't exist, but they do. Physically taken. They are showed a procedure of translating data from these history records. The history records hold the science records as well, and the race records as far as where we came from. They hold the ancient spiritual teachings of something called the founders' races, which were the first races that came into manifest form in this 15-dimensional time matrix. The information that we bring to you, piece by piece, wave by wave, is drawn from the Cloister Doratura plates. It is not channeled information. In fact, we don't endorse channeling unless you know exactly what you're doing with your 15-dimensional anatomy, because you can hurt yourself. There are things in the interdimensional spectrum that if you don't know how to use your energy fields in a proper way can cause harm to your energy fields. So the new people that are here, I don't want you to make any mistake that this is channeled information. It's not that I can't channel, but when you get to a certain level of understanding the mechanics of things, you realize you don't have to be a channel. There are higher levels of interdimensional communication available to you. Channeling, as it's done in the New Age movement, is a situation where beings from a different density level, a different level of matter, this is the most dense level of matter. Well, in channeling, beings from a less dense level of matter literally push their energy into your bioenergetic fields and into your DNA template. They move their consciousness into your body, and very often they take over, which is called going into trance. The danger in that practice is that channels don't even know who they're dealing with. A lot of channels will say, oh, I channeled this angel, I channeled that angel. My first question is, how do you know it's an angel from a fallen angel? Do you know the difference? So when I talk about the information when I bring this information to you, there is a level of what the guardian races of this time matrix consider integrity, because it is not brought through in a way that allows it to be compromised. The information in this weekend's workshop was on 14th dimensional security clearance, which means, first of all, I don't get it until right before I transmit it to you, which is enough to drive me crazy, but I don't have the luxury of that reaction, so I don't go there. That means that a program of the most intensive data that I have seen given yet is still in me in energy form and running through me, there for translation, but it's not on paper yet. The closest we have is the itinerary type thing you'll be getting at the 9 o'clock break. The reason we don't have it now is because right before I came, that's what I pulled off the computer to make the master. The information in here, I will read to you some of the things that are in this course. And it's like, this is ancient history that I do have the memory of. But to bring this level of detail into this space-time frame is not an easy thing to do. So I will do my best to relearn it and remember it well enough that I can give it to you in a way that you can appreciate and enjoy it. So you can remember it. Because in truth, the information, even some of the most highest level information, doesn't belong to me. It doesn't just belong to the guardian races. It belongs to every being that's manifest in this time matrix. We're just translators who keep it alive in different reality systems. Now, the first subject that we'll be talking about, the thing is called Mechanics of Manifestation and Embodying Your Heroic Future. That was the title that they gave me a couple of weeks ago when we were just putting the things out on the internet to let people know that we were giving a workshop. It always goes this way with the higher level data. I'll get the title, they'll give me the title, and right before I will get the information that becomes a transmission of frequency that I have spent 20 years learning to translate through my biosystems, so I can stretch it out into words and slow it down so it can translate into my home language. Now, they added this as the big title, so you can consider the original title a subtitle. The big title is Mind, Matter, Merkaba, and Mastery. Now, we're going to get into something called manifestation templates, or the blueprints for manifestation. The people who have been with this work for a while, that's not a new concept. I'm going to have fun trying to help the people who have not been a part of the workshops coming to get to a point where you can understand that easily. There is also a track record of work behind us that's been given since '99. All of the work, literally, that's in writing has been done since '99. And I tell you, I could use clones to bring it down. But if there are holes in what I'm talking about to the people who are not familiar with this, it is worth getting some of the product. I'd give it to you free if I could. But at this point, so many hours a day are required that I have to make a choice. I'm either here to be a spiritual being and bring the knowledge that I incarnated to bring, or I have to go get a 9-to-5 job and try to figure out how to do the same thing, which I can't do. So the product is available. If there are things that don't make sense to you, I do apologize in advance. It just simply means that there is a whole bunch of information of a different frequency, because information is energy equals frequency, just like radio waves are frequency. There are certain channels and stations of frequency of our consciousness. The earlier information was a bit lower frequency, and progressively we've been raising in frequency in the information. So if you come in at this level of frequency, but you haven't assembled into your consciousness yet, the frequencies and the information they carry that would be between here and where your body is down here, there will be gaps in your understanding. That's normal, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're not aware enough to deal with this kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that you're stupid. It doesn't mean that I'm wrong either. It simply means there's a frequency bridge that needs to be made. And there are products in the form of audios and videos from workshops. We've tried to tape everything we do because we never do the same thing twice. And it just builds every time. So there is the stepping down of frequency. If we're up here and you need to fill in blanks here, you can find a lot about dimensional structure and the templates I talk about in the Kathara Bao spiritual healing system. It teaches you the context of healing, which is the 15-dimensional structure. It tells you what dimensions are, it explains what they are, it explains their structure, it explains the basic things you need to understand if you're going to do master's template mechanics, which is what being a master is. It's really interesting. In the New Age movement, there's a lot of people that walk around claiming to be ascended masters. And I ask them certain questions, and they haven't a clue. And that shows me something. If they were ascended masters, as they claim to be, they would have open in their bodies the level of consciousness that could answer those particular questions that have to do with simple creation mechanics. I don't like to claim anything except I am who I am. There's information in, this is some of the stuff I'll put out for tomorrow, for the people who don't know me and who don't have this information, because you other guys that have other manuals and things have the introductory information. There's information on my biography that'll give you some idea of who I am and how I came to be doing what I'm doing. But I just want you to understand that we can help each other here by realizing there's levels of consciousness that are all sorts of different frequencies in the room right now. For everybody to understand what was given to me to bring to you so we could all understand, we need to go into what's called an average mean of consciousness, or a frequency band that can hold all of the consciousness in the room, that it's low enough where the people who don't have any of this information can catch it, and where it's high enough where they can come up, but the people that are up here that already have lots of information aren't going to drift off and fall asleep and be bored to death. Because boredom comes from frequency oversaturation. You start to get feeling bored when you've gone through a frequency pattern over and over and over, and you don't need that frequency coming in anymore. So it kind of puts you to sleep and your mind drifts off and you get like attention deficit disorder temporarily and that kind of thing. So I will try to, see, what I usually do is I'll go right into the hard stuff. Like say, well, this is that. Yeah, this is, the intense stuff. This is the new stuff. Because I get excited when each level of new stuff is given. I kind of pound away at my computer going, oh, look at this. And, Michael will walk by and he's like, look. And I'll read a part of it and say, oh, that's neat. And I know it connects to this, but I don't know how yet, So this is how the information goes. But if I start with that level with you, I'm going to lose most of you. So I'll simply start with how it was given to me as far as the sequence. Now with these programs, I don't do the sequencing of information. I don't decide what I'm going to teach first and what I'm going to teach after that. This comes through directly from the plate translations. This is how the information is sequenced in frequency on those holographic disc cloister doratura plates. There's a reason for that. The lower frequency comes first and it leads up to the higher. It creates the bridge of frequency that allows understanding to happen with as little gaps as possible. So the order that this information is given in is provided for me from the plates. And I try to stick to it, but sometimes I'll get a little urge from interdimensional communication, not channeling, all right? I'll get a little urge to add a little frequency here or add a little there, because that helps to compensate for if there's anybody in the group that's kind of going over here with their frequency because they lost that trail of frequency. We try to bring them back around so the understanding can still take place. Now, I used to be very self-conscious about one thing when I was doing public presentation. First of all, I hated public presentation. I was always very shy and liked to be invisible. And this job doesn't allow me to do that. But one of the things that was most difficult for me was standing up in front of a group of people and trying to explain a level of frequency to them that they have not ever encountered. Trying to explain my experience in the way I understand it that involves interdimensional communication that is not channeling. Telepathic communication is different than channeling. So you will see, because I just let myself be who I am these days, and I don't kind of get embarrassed when new information comes in while I'm standing here talking to you. But there will be some times when the people that I work with, that I'll explain a little bit about, but I don't want to bore the people who already know that, so that information is in writing, they will literally send thought forms to me that come out as telepathic communication, where I can hear them. That in that way, it will allow me to be more responsive to the group, in the best way that I can. So at times, you may see me do little things like, oh yeah, oh okay. And once in a while, you'll find I'll be on a roll and saying something, and then all of a sudden they'd be like getting tapped on the head. Wait a minute. Shift frequency. Okay? It would be better at this frequency. And then literally, my thought train will go in a different line, but I'll say, oh, they did it again. So if you see these things happen with me, I'm not a nut, I'm not a flake, and I'm not a channel, but I am responsive to the moment, because that allows me to be the best transmitter of information that I can be. As a speaker, as a teacher, that's what it's my job to do. Just transmit information to you in the best way I know how. Now, when we get into our itinerary for this presentation, we will begin tomorrow with the heavy stuff, which means I'm going to be up all night trying to put as much of it on paper as I can get, because right now, when it's on security clearance and it's given to me on the spot where I don't have any paperwork myself walking into it, I will do my best to stay up all night, and I've done this before. I've done numerous workshops, literally no sleep, because I know how important the paperwork can be in helping you to remember. You might get it once you're here in this frequency, but once you leave and go back to a different frequency that you're more used to, you start losing pieces of it, because the group helps to sustain the awareness in each individual. So I will do my best to put as much of this information into what I call a chart pack, which are small packages usually filled with diagrams, and those diagrams take hours. I will have something for you on paper. I'm not sure exactly how much of it. If nothing else, at least the techniques will be written down on paper, because there are several techniques that are going to be given. Some of them will be given Sunday, some will be given tomorrow. That they ran them through me really fast once as I was sitting at the computer trying to proof this to get it out of the printer for the master. I wouldn't even remember it. If it is here, do this, do this, do this, and then you like walk out the door, what did I just do? You know, you will have the technique, the techniques, there are several on paper, but I will also try to give you other pertinent information. Now, if you really want to understand the context that this takes place within, and if you want to be able to have a whole bunch of other techniques that will facilitate your use of the master's level techniques that are being given now, the new manual, what I do with it here, the new manual is, this thing contains some amazing things. It's called the Emerald Covenant Masters Templar Stewardship Initiative. All right, it's the Secrets of the Amenti Stargates and the Grail Quest Signet Roundtables. This tells you about your body structure, about your subtle body structure, about dimensional structure, and it also tells you about all the forbidden hidden history, and it tells you about grid mechanics and something called the Rainbow Roundtables, which is a program of science and spirit united that the ancients practiced when they were guardians of the planetary energy systems and the stargates. We're being given this information because we are being prepared. Our race is being prepared to resume what was once our position. We were the guardians and the security team for the Halls of Amenti Stargates. The Halls of Amenti Stargates have not been opened in over 200,000 years. They only opened during a period of time called a stellar activations cycle. We are approaching, we have started, as of January 2000, a stellar activation cycle. The Halls of Amenti Stargates are opening. Now, this book would not have been given until about 2008 if things were going according to original plans in the higher dimensions. The book is being given now, and the crash course and information is being given now, because there are certain events that were listed in the book, Voyagers Volume 2, Secrets of Amenti. It was called the Amenti Ascension Schedule, which was talking about when particular things would happen in relation to the opening of the Halls of Amenti Stargates. They were not intended to open till 2012, and then in 2017 there was supposed to be an event called a 3-day particle conversion period. This planet has not had one of those in over 200,000 years. They can be smooth or they can be messy. It depends on how the planetary energy systems are working. There are certain events that have been taking place in the political arena since what we call the Atlantean period of 50,000 BC and forward to this time, that are still ongoing events that were scheduled to come to a head during the stellar activation cycle that was scheduled for the year 2000 to 2017. Because of the events that involve an occurrence in history that's known as the Atlantean Conspiracy, that is still ongoing, that was projected into the future here to reach its fulfillment here. Because of this, now this history is in that book, okay, in the large manual. There are things taking place here, that the events that were supposed to take place between 2012 and 2017, and this is new stuff for the guys who have been through this before too. This is just in, has been accelerated. Somewhere between 2003 and 2006, the Halls of Amenti are opening, which was news to me. I was waiting for 2012, and see what will happen is there are a group of people on the planet called indigo children. Indigo children are called indigo because they have the 6th strand template of their DNA activated kind of like on idle, waiting to bring that consciousness and that energy in. They're born with that. They came here as the large soul group that were incarnations of the founders' races. And they go to sleep when they come into incarnation, just like anybody else does. Most of the people that come to these workshops, some of them are completely all, were indigo children, because it's put out on a minimum of D6 frequency transmission, which hits the 6th strand, which gives you, maybe I'll go check that out feeling. All right. The indigo children were supposed to go through a stage of awakening every couple of years. Certain amounts of their consciousness would get back, get into body, and they'd know a little more about what they were here for and what they're here to do and what their life purpose was. And they were supposed to have it kind of like a nice stretch and growing and waking up between the years 2000 and 2012. Well, because what's happening in 2012 is now due at the latest 2006, most likely and more likely in 2003, is the rush job wake-up call. It's like the difference between the sun coming gently in your window in the morning and touching you as you lay there sleeping in bed, and you feel the warmth, and you kind of open your eyes and stretch, rub your eyes a little, nice stretch out of bed, That would have been the 2012 awakening procedure. This is more like somebody comes into your room and flips the mattress over. Get up! Get up! The reason, now even for me, this is like, it's like trying to jog to keep up with yourself. This information is moving so fast. Now, for me to bring information through, my DNA template has to activate fast enough to keep up with the frequencies of the information. My body has been going through, I'm surprised I still look like a human. I'm just morphing all over the place inside. I've had, as soon as this transmission started to be given, just little pieces of it, little indications that it was something on security clearance that I wouldn't get until, the day of. My back went out for 3 days from Kundalini activation. I was walking around like this. As soon as that cleared and those energies synthesized, then my sinuses started going crazy. And I've been sneezing ever since, So my body had to clear a bunch of stuff out really fast to make room for this frequency so I could even bring the information through. Now, the information, it's actually very good news. It's manifestation templates. We're going to do basics. Now, here's where the people who haven't had any of the information will have a chance to catch up. We'll deal with template substance, which gets into primal substance, particle units, chains, grids, kelons, codes, scalar waves, fire letters, micro subatomic units, and anti-units. All right, that far, most people who've come to other things already know about those. So I'll warn you ahead of time, that will go fast. All right? And what I mean fast, there are times when I get on a flow of information and we're on such short time. This stuff you could take 3 months to teach. Little bit by little bit. You literally get bombarded with frequency and information and just hold as much as you can. But we will go that far. And it will help to bring the people up that haven't been, exposed to the work. It'll help to get you at least to understand some terms of reference that will be used in the rest of it. And if you want more detail on those, they are in the other books. There are some of them in the Templar book, and there are some in the Cathara healing book. Now, we will go from there into something called Mayans, Dians, and Trions. New words! This is information that's not in the Cathara level 1. It was due for, I think, Cathara level 4. We're only on Cathara introduction to level 2 of Cathara healing. So these are some interesting new things that if we're going to learn about manifestation templates, and we're ultimately going to learn about what the heck are thoughts and what are we doing with them, or what are they doing to us, and how do we get control of our manifestation here to fulfill the original purpose that we came here to fulfill. How do we become our heroic selves, the best selves that we can be? And the best self you can be will be the most joyful. You will have the most expansive, full experience that you chose for yourself before you came into incarnation. So it's very personal, but it also has to do with how do individuals use their inherent power to be able to assist this planet through the opening of the halls of Amenti stargates, so this planet keeps its energetic integrity. And how do the indigo children fill the big secret that their mission was about, that has only been recently revealed? The big secret was the indigo children incarnated here because it was known that stellar activation would happen, and every time a stellar activation cycle happens, it ends in a 3-day particle conversion period, which is very intense information. Some of it's contained in Voyager's Volume 2, Secrets of Amenti.